Today, we're diving into something that sounds like it belongs in a sci-fi movie, but it's happening right now in hospitals across the world. We're talking about CAR T therapy, where we literally reprogram your immune system to become a precision assassin against cancer. CAR T is not the latest electric vehicle from some trendy startup. CAR T stands for Chimeric Antigen Receptor T cells, and while that's quite a mouthful, what it really means is we're taking your body's own immune cells and turning them into cancer-fighting superheroes. Imagine if you could take your body's natural defenders, your T cells, and give them some special weapons and targeting systems, kind of like upgrading stormtroopers to Navy SEALs. That's essentially what CAR T therapy does. We're talking about a revolutionary approach that's already saving lives of patients who have run out of options. Let me share a quick story that really drives this home. Back in 2012, a 6-year-old girl named Emily Whitehead was out of conventional options for her battle with leukemia. She became the first pediatric patient to receive CAR T therapy. And guess what? She's now a healthy young woman, cancer-free for over a decade. This isn't just another treatment, it's potentially a cure for some of the most challenging cancers that we face. But here's where it gets really interesting and why I'm so excited to share this with you today. CAR T isn't just about cancer anymore. Scientists are now exploring its use in treating autoimmune diseases like multiple sclerosis and lupus. We're watching medical history being written, and the implications are staggering. What makes this therapy unique is that it's completely personalized. We're not talking about a one-size-fits-all drug manufactured in massive batches. Each treatment is custom-made for each patient using their own cells, or in some newer approaches, specially prepared donor cells. It's like having a tailor-made suit, but instead of fabric, we're tailoring immune cells to perfectly fit your disease. Welcome to Apprentice.io's Industry Insights. I'm Frank Maggiore, and today we're going to break down how this revolutionary therapy works, from the complex manufacturing process to the role of cutting-edge automation systems in making it all possible. We'll explore why it currently costs upwards of $1 million per treatment. Yes, you heard that right, and how new technologies are working to bring that number down. But before we dive deep into the science of manufacturing, let me tell you why this matters so much. In my years of working with pharmaceutical manufacturing systems, I've seen lots of innovations come and go. But CAR T, this is different. We're not just treating symptoms or slowing disease progression, we're actually teaching the body to heal itself. It's like giving your immune system a graduate degree in cancer fighting. Stay tuned as we dive deeper into this groundbreaking therapy and show you why it is going to be a major tool in the toolbox of upcoming therapeutics. Let's break down how CAR T therapy actually works. And believe me, it's cooler than your favorite sci-fi movie. First, let's talk about T cells, the Navy SEALs of your immune system. These microscopic warriors normally patrol your body, identifying and eliminating threats like viruses and bacteria. They're incredibly good at their job, but when it comes to cancer, they sometimes need a little extra help. Think of it this way. Cancer cells are like criminals wearing really good disguises. Your T cells might walk right past them without realizing they're the bad guys. That's where CAR T therapy comes in. We're essentially giving these cellular soldiers night vision goggles and precise targeting systems. So how do we transform regular T cells into cancer-fighting superheroes? Well, we start by adding something called the Chimeric Antigen Receptor. That's the CAR in CAR T. This receptor is like a sophisticated radar system that can spot specific proteins on cancer cells. Imagine upgrading your phone's camera to instantly recognize one specific face in a crowded stadium. That's kind of what we're doing with these cells. Now, there are two main approaches to creating these cellular superheroes. The first is called autologous CAR T therapy. That's where we use the patient's own T cells. It's like taking your smartphone and giving it a massive upgrade. We collect the cells through a process called leukapheresis, basically filtering them out of your blood like panning from microscopic gold. These cells are then sent to a laboratory where they're genetically modified to express the CAR, multiplied by the millions, and then infused back into the patient. The second approach is called allogenic CAR T therapy, or what we like to call the off-the-shelf approach. Instead of using a patient's own cells, we use T cells from healthy donors that have been engineered to work in any patient. Think of it like having a universal phone charger that works with any device. This approach could potentially be faster and cheaper, but it comes with its own challenges, like making sure the donor cells don't attack the patient's healthy tissues. Currently, the FDA has approved several CAR T therapies, primarily for blood cancers like leukemia, lymphoma, and multiple myeloma. These approvals came after seeing some pretty remarkable results. We're talking about patients who had exhausted all other options, then achieving complete remission. It's like watching someone come back to win after being down in the ninth inning with 2 outs. But here's where it gets really exciting. The clinical trials currently underway. Scientists are now testing CAR T therapy against solid tumors like breast cancer and brain cancer. They're also exploring its use in autoimmune diseases. Imagine using these reprogrammed cells to calm down an overactive immune system in conditions like lupus or multiple sclerosis. It's like training your cellular soldiers not just to fight, but to also keep the peace. The challenge with solid tumors is that they're like fortified castles compared to blood cancers. The cancer cells build physical barriers and create a hostile environment that makes it hard for our CAR T cells to get in and do their job. But researchers are working on clever solutions, like adding additional modifications to help the CAR T cells break through these cellular defenses. What's particularly fascinating is how this technology is evolving. The first generation of CAR T cells were like basic flip phones. They did one job, and they did it pretty well. But now we're seeing fourth generation CAR T cells that are almost like the latest smartphones. They can perform multiple functions, resist exhaustion, and even produce their own immune stimulating chemicals. Some newer designs even include safety switches that allow doctors to turn the cells off if needed, just like having a remote control for your immune system. Let's peek behind the curtain at how these cellular superheroes are actually made. This isn't your grandfather's pharmaceutical manufacturing. We're not mixing chemicals in big vats. Instead, imagine running a microscopic boot camp where we train millions of immune cells to become precision cancer fighters. The process starts with the collecting of patients' T cells through a procedure called leukapheresis. Picture a sophisticated filtering system, kind of like a specialized coffee filter, but instead of catching coffee grounds, it's collecting specific white blood cells while returning the rest of the blood back to the patient. This process alone can take 3 to 6 hours, about the length of a Lord of the Rings movie, but potentially with more life-changing results. Maybe. Once collected, these cells begin their journey through what we call a chain of identity, and this is where cloud-based manufacturing execution systems, or MES, become absolutely critical. Every step needs to be tracked with perfect accuracy, because let's face it, the last thing you want is to get your cellular army mixed up with someone else's. The MES acts like a GPS system combined with a meticulous personal assistant, tracking every single step and ensuring no mistakes are made. In the lab, scientists use viral vectors, think of them as molecular delivery trucks, to insert new genetic instructions into the T cells. These instructions tell the cells how to produce their chimeric antigen receptor, essentially giving them their cancer-seeking superpowers. It's like installing new software, except instead of updating your phone, we're upgrading your immune system. But here's where it gets really interesting. These cells need to be multiplied, typically from a few million to several billion. We grow them in specialized bioreactors that are like 5-star hotels for cells, providing the perfect environment for them to thrive and multiply. The MES system monitors every aspect of this process: temperature, pH, nutrient levels, oxygen, more parameters than a helicopter parent tracking their kids' activities. Quality control in CAR T manufacturing is more intense than a TSA checkpoint. We're talking about multiple tests throughout the process to ensure that the cells are growing correctly, are free from contamination, and haven't picked up any unwanted mutations. The MES system helps manage all these quality checks, automatically flagging any deviations and maintaining electronic batch records that would make an IRS auditor jealous. Now, traditionally, all this manufacturing happens in centralized facilities, but we're seeing a revolution with hospitals setting up their own CAR T manufacturing labs. It's like the difference between ordering a custom suit from overseas versus having a local tailor. You get faster turnaround times and better control over the process. Some major cancer centers can now go from cell collection to patient infusion in just as little as 1 to 2 weeks, compared to the traditional 3 to 4 weeks. Let's talk about those eye-watering costs. Why does CAR T therapy cost between $400,000 to $1 million or more? Well, imagine running a highly personalized boutique manufacturing operation for each patient, with dozens of highly trained specialists involved, using cutting-edge equipment, and requiring the perfect execution every time. It's like building a custom Ferrari, except this one fights cancer. This is where automation comes in as a potential game changer. New automated systems are being developed that can handle many of the manual steps in CAR T production. These systems, integrated with cloud-based manufacturing execution systems, can reduce human error, increase consistency, and most importantly, potentially bring down costs. Think of it like transitioning from handcrafting each iPhone to having automated assembly lines, except in this case, we're dealing with living cells that are a bit more demanding than electronic components. The MES system ties everything together, creating a digital thread that follows each batch from start to finish. It manages the workflow, ensures compliance with regulatory requirements, and maintains complete traceability. If any questions come up months or years later, we can trace exactly what happened at every step of the process. Who did what, when they did it, and what the conditions were at the time. For hospital-based manufacturing, these systems are absolutely critical. They help smaller facilities maintain the same rigorous standards as large pharmaceutical companies while managing multiple patient batches simultaneously. It's like having an expert co-pilot guiding you through every step of a complex journey. Let's talk about where CAR-T therapy is making waves in the medical world. Think of it like having a new Swiss Army knife in our medical toolkit. We're still discovering all the ways we can use it. First up, blood cancers. This is where CAR-T has really shown its muscle. Remember those night vision goggles we gave our T cells? Well, they're particularly good at spotting a protein called CD19 that's found on most B-cell blood cancers. For patients with certain types of leukemia and lymphoma who've tried everything else, CAR-T therapy is pulling off some remarkable comebacks. We're seeing complete remission rates of 80 to 90% in some forms of leukemia that previously had very poor prognosis. That's like having a baseball team come back from a 10-run deficit in the bottom of the ninth. It just wasn't supposed to be possible. For multiple myeloma, a different target called BCMA is being used, and the results are equally impressive. 2 recently approved CAR-T products targeting BCMA are giving new hope to patients who've exhausted all other options. These treatments are showing response rates around 75 to 80%, with many patients achieving complete remission. That's particularly impressive considering these patients typically had already tried an average of 6 other treatments without success. But here's where things get trickier. Solid tumors. These are like fortified castles compared to blood cancers, which are more like enemies out in the open. Solid tumors create physical barriers and chemical defenses that make it hard for our CAR-T cells to get in and do their job. It's like trying to break into Fort Knox with a really good lockpick. Having the right tool isn't enough if you can't get to the lock. Currently, clinical trials are testing various strategies to overcome these challenges. Some are designing CAR-T cells that can produce their own battering rams, enzymes that break down physical barriers around tumors. Others are creating dual-targeting CAR-T cells that can recognize multiple tumor markers at once, making it harder for cancer cells to hide. Think of it like giving our cellular soldiers both infrared and thermal vision. If they can't spot the enemy one way, they've got a backup. So where does CAR-T fit in the broader treatment landscape? Right now, it's typically used as a last resort after other treatments have failed. That's partly because of the cost and complexity, but also because we're still learning about long-term effects. However, given the remarkable results we're seeing, there's growing interest in using CAR-T therapy earlier in treatment, particularly for aggressive cancers. Think of cancer treatment like a chess game. Chemotherapy is like sweeping the board with one big move that takes out both good and bad pieces. Targeted therapies are more like precise attacks on specific pieces. CAR-T therapy, it's like having the pieces that can adapt and change their moves during the game, hunting down the enemy king wherever it tries to hide. The real game changer might be in combining CAR-T with other treatments. Some trials are looking at using CAR-T cells along with checkpoint inhibitors, another type of immunotherapy, to create a 1-2 punch against cancer. Others are exploring whether using CAR-T therapy earlier or as a way to clean up any remaining cancer cells after other treatments might lead to better outcomes. In addition to being used for immediate treatment of certain cancer types, CAR-T cells have demonstrated remarkable durability through long-term patient follow-up studies, with some patients now reaching and exceeding the 10-year mark post-treatment. One of the most compelling examples comes from the earliest CD19 CAR-T cell trials, where patients have maintained complete cancer remission for over a decade. In these long-term survivors, researchers found that CAR-T cells can persist in the body and are potentially continuing their cancer-fighting surveillance for 10 plus years after the initial treatment. Interestingly, while the number of CAR-T cells decreases significantly from their peak levels during initial treatment, even small populations of these cells can provide ongoing protection. Studies have shown that in some patients, these cells remain detectable at around 0.1 to 0.8% of total T cells, even 9 to 10 years after infusion. The quality of life for long-term survivors has generally been excellent, with most patients being able to return to their normal daily activities. However, there are some considerations to keep in mind. These patients typically experience ongoing B-cell depletion and may require regular immunoglobulin replacement therapy to support their immune system. Despite this, the incidence of severe infections is relatively low in long-term survivors compared to the immediate post-treatment period. When examining patients' outcomes, the data is particularly encouraging for certain blood cancers. For instance, in B-cell lymphoma patients who achieve a complete response, up to 60% have remained cancer-free at the 5-year mark. It's worth noting that if patients maintain their remission for the first 2 years after treatment, their chances of long-term disease-free survival increases significantly. What makes this durability particularly remarkable is that it comes from a single treatment, unlike traditional cancer therapies that often require ongoing maintenance. While not every patient achieves these long-term remissions, those who do demonstrate the potential curative power of CAR T-cell therapy, essentially transforming some previously fatal cancers into manageable and, in some cases, curable conditions. The key takeaway is that CAR T-cells have demonstrated an unprecedented ability to persist and function in patients for a decade or more, providing ongoing protection against cancer reoccurrence and allowing many patients to return to their normal life, albeit with some manageable medical considerations. Let's pivot to something that's really exciting and honestly caught a lot of scientists by surprise. Remember how we talked about CAR T being developed to fight cancer? Well, it turns out these cellular superheroes might have another trick up their sleeves, treating autoimmune diseases. Think about autoimmune diseases like lupus, multiple sclerosis, or rheumatoid arthritis. In these conditions, your immune system basically gets its wires crossed and starts attacking your own body. Traditional treatments usually involve suppressing the entire immune system, kind of like using a sledgehammer when what you really need is a scalpel. And for many patients, these treatments either stop working or come with devastating side effects. What's really fascinating is that scientists discovered almost by accident that CAR T therapy could help these patients. It started when they noticed that patients receiving CAR T for lymphoma, who also happen to have autoimmune conditions, suddenly saw their autoimmune symptoms improve. It's like ordering a pizza and finding out it also cures your headache. Here's how it works. In many autoimmune diseases, the trouble starts with B cells producing antibodies that attack your own tissues. CAR T cells can be programmed to eliminate these misbehaving B cells, essentially giving your immune system a fresh start. Think of it as rebooting your computer when it's acting up. Sometimes you need to turn it off and turn it back on again. The results from early clinical trials have been nothing short of remarkable. In one small trial, all 5 patients with severe lupus went into remission after receiving CAR T therapy. That's particularly exciting because these were patients who hadn't responded to conventional treatments. We're talking about patients who had been sick for years, suddenly being able to live normal lives. And unlike cancer treatments where CAR T cells needed to stick around for a long time, even short-term B cell depletion seems to be enough to reset the immune system in these cases. But here's where it gets really interesting. The applications keep expanding. Clinical trials are now looking at CAR T therapy for multiple sclerosis, myasthenia gravis, and even type 1 diabetes. Scientists are exploring whether similar approaches could work for conditions like rheumatoid arthritis and inflammatory bowel disease. It's like we've discovered a master key that might unlock treatments for dozens of different autoimmune conditions. What's particularly exciting is that the side effects seem to be much milder when using CAR T for autoimmune diseases compared with cancer treatment. We're seeing fewer instances of cytokine release syndrome and neurotoxicity, probably because there are fewer target cells to attack. It's like the difference between demolishing a building in the middle of a city versus taking one down in an empty field. There's just less collateral damage to worry about. And scientists are getting creative with their new approaches. Some are developing CAR T cells that can be switched on and off like a light switch, giving doctors more control over treatment. Others are working on off-the-shelf versions that wouldn't need to be custom-made for each patient, which could potentially make the treatment more accessible and affordable. The implications are huge. Imagine a future where instead of taking powerful immunosuppressive drugs for decades, patients with autoimmune diseases could receive a single treatment that resets their immune system and provides lasting relief. We're not quite there yet, but the early results are incredibly promising. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, making CAR T therapy more accessible to the masses. Right now, we're looking at treatments that cost anywhere from $400,000 to over $1 million per patient. That's not just expensive, it's astronomical. And the reason isn't corporate greed, it's the incredibly complex, personalized manufacturing process required for each dose. Think of current CAR T manufacturing like a Michelin star restaurant, where each dish is made to order by master chefs. It's amazing, but it's not exactly McDonald's level scalable. Each batch of CAR T cells is essentially a bespoke product, crafted specifically for one patient, requiring specialized facilities and highly trained personnel. It's more art than assembly line at this point. But here's where things get interesting. We're seeing a revolution in how these cellular therapies are manufactured, and cloud-based manufacturing execution systems, or MES, are leading the charge. These systems are like having a super intelligent co-pilot that oversees every step of the manufacturing process. Imagine if you had a system that could track every single detail about each patient's cells from the moment they're collected to the moment they're infused back into the patient. That's what we're talking about. The role of MES in this process cannot be overstated. It's tracking thousands of parameters in real time, ensuring that each step is performed correctly, documenting everything for regulatory compliance, and even predicting potential issues before they occur. When you're dealing with living cells that need to be put back into a patient, there's zero room for error. One mistake could be catastrophic. The MES helps prevent those mistakes by automating processes, providing detailed instruction to operators, and ensuring every step is performed in the correct order. We're also seeing an interesting debate emerge about centralized versus hospital-based manufacturing. Right now, most CAR T cells are manufactured in large, centralized facilities, but some major cancer centers are starting to bring this capability in-house. It's like the difference between getting your bread from a large commercial bakery versus having a bakery in your local grocery store. Both approaches have their merits. Hospital-based manufacturing can significantly reduce the time from cell collection to treatment. We're talking about cutting a turnaround time from 3 to 4 weeks down to 1 to 2 weeks in some cases. When you're dealing with aggressive cancers or severe autoimmune conditions, those weeks can make a huge difference. Plus, it eliminates the risks and logistics of shipping living cells across the country. But here's where automation and standardization become crucial. Whether you're manufacturing in a centralized facility or in a hospital, you need systems that can ensure consistent quality. Companies are developing closed, automated systems that can handle many of the manual steps in CAR T production. Think of like a sophisticated vending machine for cell therapy. You put in the starting materials, and it handles the complex processing with minimal human intervention. The MES plays a vital role here too, helping to standardize processes across different manufacturing sites. It's ensuring that whether your CAR T cells are made in Houston or Boston, they're made exactly the same way, following the same protocols with the same quality controls. This is particularly important as we see more hospitals starting to manufacture their own CAR T products. Looking to the future, we're seeing some promising solutions to these challenges. Several companies are working on off-the-shelf CAR T products that could be manufactured in advance and stored until they're needed. This would be a game changer for both cost and accessibility. Others are developing new manufacturing platforms that could dramatically reduce the time and cost of production. The role of artificial intelligence and machine learning in manufacturing optimization is also expanding. These systems can analyze vast amounts of manufacturing data to identify patterns and optimize processes in ways that humans simply can't. When you're dealing with biological systems as complex as cell therapy, having these advanced analytical tools is invaluable. And let's not forget about scale. As more indications for CAR T therapy are approved, both in cancer and autoimmune diseases, we need manufacturing solutions that can keep up with demand. This is where the integration of automated systems, sophisticated MES platforms, and standardized processes become critical. We're not just talking about making more CAR T cells, we're talking about making them more consistently, more efficiently, and more affordably. Let me pull out my crystal ball and share what I think the next decade of CAR T therapy looks like. And folks, it's pretty damn exciting. First, we're seeing CAR T therapy expanding far beyond its original cancer-fighting roots. Scientists are now exploring its use in treating heart disease, where engineered T cells could potentially help repair damaged heart tissue. They're looking at using it to fight chronic viral infections like HIV, and there's even research into using CAR T cells to combat age-related diseases. It's like we've discovered the Swiss Army knife of cellular therapy, and we're still finding new ways to use it. The technology itself is evolving rapidly too. Scientists are developing smart CAR T cells that can be controlled with small molecules, essentially giving doctors a remote control for the therapy. Need to boost the activity? There's a pill for that. Need to shut it down because of the side effects? There's a pill for that too. It's like having a dimmer switch for your cellular therapy. We're also seeing the emergence of multi-targeted CAR T cells that can attack cancer or autoimmune diseases from multiple angles simultaneously. These are like sophisticated guided missiles that can track multiple targets at once, making it harder for diseases to develop resistance to the treatment. On the manufacturing front, artificial intelligence and machine learning are revolutionizing how we produce these cells. These systems can analyze vast amounts of data from each manufacturing run to optimize the process in real time. They're helping to identify the perfect conditions for cell growth, predict potential quality issues before they happen, and even suggest improvements to the manufacturing process. The integration of robotics and automation is also transforming production. New closed automated systems can handle many of the complex steps in CAR-T manufacturing with minimal human intervention. This not only reduces the risk of contamination, but also helps ensure consistency from batch to batch. It's like having a highly sophisticated autopilot for cell manufacturing. And here's something really exciting. Some companies are developing methods to manufacture CAR-T cells inside the patient's body. Instead of removing cells, modifying them in the lab, and putting them back, they're working on ways to deliver the genetic modifications directly into the T cells in the bloodstream. If this works, it could dramatically reduce both the cost and complexity of treatment. The role of cloud-based manufacturing execution systems is also evolving. These platforms are becoming more sophisticated, using artificial intelligence to optimize processes, predict outcomes, and ensure quality control. They're also enabling better collaboration between different manufacturing sites and research centers, accelerating the pace of innovation. Cost reduction strategies are coming from multiple angles. Beyond the manufacturing improvements we've already discussed, companies are exploring new payment models like outcomes-based pricing, where they only charge if the treatment works. Insurance companies and healthcare systems are also getting creative with funding solutions, recognizing that while these therapies are expensive up front, they might actually save money in the long run by curing diseases that would otherwise require lifelong treatment. Before we wrap up today, let's take a moment to appreciate just how far we've come in the fight against cancer and autoimmune diseases. Just a decade ago, the idea of reprogramming your own immune cells to fight disease seemed like science fiction. Today, it's saving lives. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the basic science of how CAR-T cells work to the complex manufacturing processes that bring them to patients. We've seen how this therapy has evolved from a last resort treatment for certain blood cancers to a promising option for multiple diseases. And we've explored how new technologies and manufacturing approaches are making these treatments more accessible and effective. But what really excites me, and what should excite you, is where we're heading. We're standing at the threshold of a new era in medicine, where cellular therapies like CAR-T could revolutionize how we treat a whole range of diseases. It's not just about fighting cancer anymore. We're talking about potentially resetting the immune system in autoimmune diseases, repairing damaged tissues, and maybe even tackling age-related conditions. The challenges are significant, yes. These treatments are expensive, complex to manufacture, and sometimes come with serious side effects. But we're seeing incredible innovation in addressing each of these challenges, from artificial intelligence optimizing manufacturing processes to new off-the-shelf approaches that could dramatically reduce costs. The solutions are coming fast and furious. For those of you listening who might be battling cancer or an autoimmune condition, or who have loved ones fighting these diseases, I want to leave you with a message of hope. The pace of advancement in this field is breathtaking. Every day, scientists are making breakthroughs that bring us closer to making these therapies more effective, safer, and more accessible. What seems impossible today might be routine tomorrow. And for those of you in healthcare, biotechnology, or manufacturing, whether you're a scientist, engineer, technician, or business leader, you have the opportunity to be part of this revolution. The challenges we face in bringing these therapies to more patients aren't just medical challenges. They're engineering challenges, manufacturing challenges, and logistical challenges. We need more innovative minds from all fields to help solve them. If you want to learn more about CAR-T therapy, I encourage you to check out the resources we provided in the show notes. There are several excellent organizations providing information and support for patients and families considering CAR-T therapy, as well as professional resources for those interested in the technical aspects of this field. As we close today, I want you to imagine a future where we no longer think of cancer as a death sentence, where autoimmune diseases can be reset rather than managed, and where personalized cellular therapies are as routine as antibiotics are today. That future isn't just a dream. We're building it right now, one engineered T-cell at a time. The most exciting advancements in medicine aren't just happening in research labs or hospitals. They're happening in manufacturing facilities and engineering offices too. Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come not from discovering new treatments, but from finding innovative ways to deliver existing ones to the patients who need them the most. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the CAR-T revolution. Keep pushing boundaries, keep asking questions, and keep believing in the power of innovation to change lives. The future of medicine is here, and it's more exciting than ever. In an industry where precision and compliance are paramount, Apprentice's Tempo platform offers a cutting-edge manufacturing execution system solution. It's cloud-based, mobile-first, operator-centric, with the most intuitive UI in the industry, making it perfect for today's dynamic pharmaceutical manufacturing environments and for the production of the world's most complex drug products. Whether you're working on groundbreaking cell and gene therapies, biologics, or small molecules, Tempo provides a fully validated MES system that's both powerful and easy to use. It streamlines your processes, ensures compliance, and adapts to your specific manufacturing needs. So get off of paper batch records and discover how Apprentice's Tempo Manufacturing Cloud can transform your operations by visiting us at apprentice.io. Attention industry professionals, revolutionize your manufacturing process with the Apprentice Tempo Manufacturing Cloud, a manufacturing execution system built to streamline your operations, boost efficiency, and ensure compliance all in one powerful platform. Experience the future of manufacturing with our free 30-day trial. Scan the QR code on your screen now to unlock a world of innovation. Don't just keep pace, set the tempo as an industry leader with Apprentice. That's all for Apprentice.io's Industry Insights. I'm Frank Maggiore. Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for notifications when new episodes drop. Please comment on if you have any additional topics you would like for me to cover in this space, and we'll see you next week for more Industry Insights.